What time is it, my friends? What time is it? Well, long ago, if you looked outside and the sun was out, it was day. And if you looked outside and it was dark, it was night, right? And that served everybody's purposes for quite a long time. But then the need to get a little bit more accurate came along, and in 1656, a man named Christian Huygens, a Dutch guy, invented the pendulum clock. Pendulum clock. And it clicked every second, and everything was good, and so we separated the day and night into seconds. That was pretty cool. But there was a problem, because everybody set their clock according to their local area and their local time. Like New York, it could be 9:55, and Boston, it could be 9:19. Now that was a problem, but it really wasn't that big of a problem until the Industrial Revolution came along and we had trains. Now, in order to have trains run and be of any value to anybody, you had to have a workable, accurate time scheduling system. And so there was a need for things to kind of sync up. So they decided that in 1847, December 1st, in Greenwich, England, everyone agreed that that was what the time was. And that's what they'd set all their clocks, first in all of England and then in the rest of the world. And that became known as Greenwich Mean Time. So that's what everybody set their clocks on. But then, in the mid-20th century, physicists decided they needed a more accurate measure of time because, depending on the temperature and how much moisture there is in the air, a pendulum swings differently, because when the temperature's lower, air is thicker. When the temperature is hotter, air is thinner. So depending on where you are, so they had this problem. So they decided, well, what can we do? What can we do? In 1947, they realized that atoms vibrate with a uniform consistency. So they made an atomic clock. Now, in the Institute of Standards and Technology, Donald Ryan is in charge of the most accurate clock there ever was made. It is so accurate that it is accurate within 1 second for 70 million years. So that means if we set the clock and started it running back when T-Rex was walking around, now it would not have lost or gained more than 1 second. 70 million years. T-Rex. The reason they can do this is because the cesium atom is the standard that they're using, because it vibrates, and just like a pendulum vibrates, a cesium atom vibrates. And so they decided that they would take and split up a second into the vibrations of a cesium atom. And it turns out that a second now is adjudicated to be 9,193,633,633 9,193,631,770 vibrations of a cesium atom. So that's how accurate a second is now. They can accurately, because because they came up with this atomic clock, now they can accurately have things going on like satellite communication. The world just transformed because they got really, really accurate about time. But another problem. Everybody started making their cesium atom clocks. Well, with these minute differentiations of time, nobody had them set the same problem. So they decided they would take a 300 clock average from around the world in 60 different countries and average those times, and that would be the time. And they call that Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. Another problem. It takes 6 weeks to compile this data. So And it's done in a chateau in France. Now, that's a problem because they can't tell you what time it is now. They have to tell you what time it was 6 weeks ago. And so everybody at all these clocks around the world, they get a message saying, okay, 4.5 weeks ago, your clock was 17 hundredths of a second too early, and that kind of thing. It's kind of like driving down the street in your car and looking in your rearview mirror to see where you've been rather than where you are or where you're going. So, and there's another problem. Since they got so accurate about finding out what time is, and time is the relative change of things around, right? They found that a day is now 2 thousandths of a second longer than it was in 1900. A day is longer than it was in 1900. That's due to the slowing of the rotation of the Earth because of various factors, the tides and whatever. But they got really clever and decided, how are we going to solve this problem? So they came up with a thing called the leap second. Now, so every couple of years they add a second, either on June 30th or December 31st. And since the advent of the atomic clock, there have been 33 leap seconds added on for us to do with whatever we please. So, my friends, I ask you again, what time is it? Well, ask me in 6 weeks, and I'll tell you. Madam Toastmaster. Thank you. Thank you.